Good afternoon, sir. My name is Ashish Kumar Tiwari. I am pursuing my MTech in EEE department. My question to you is, in the recent times, we have noticed that India's diplomatic stand is getting stronger, especially during this Ukraine-Russia war. How well is this India's assertive and more independent approach in its foreign policy being received by the EU and the USA? Why were the things not the same before?
Well, that's not not an easy question to answer. Why were things not like that before? But I tell you very honestly, it's not like we one day woke up and said, okay, from tomorrow morning we're going to be assertive. What happened very honestly was that on some issues, there was a concerted effort made to pressurize us. A lot of it came from the media, international media. Some of it came from other governments. And, you know, when you have that kind of situation where others push you to do something which you do not believe is in your interest, or to make a choice which you do not agree with, or to forego a choice which you do not wish to do, you have to decide what is the best way of dealing with those kinds of pressures. It's natural inclination to first say, okay, let me try and explain, let's be tactful about it, maybe they will understand. Then at some point of time you realize that, no, they know exactly what they're doing. You know, if they are saying something about you, it's not like they have a different set of numbers. They have the same set of numbers that you do. So I think at that stage it's important to speak up. So I'm not, you know, I am honestly not a combative person, but I also am a person who believes that when I have to draw a line and say what I have to say, I would be prepared to do that, because I think the interests of the country require us to do that.
Thank you, sir.
The final question is from Professor Palash Ghosh.
Good afternoon, sir. I am Dr. Palash Ghosh, Assistant Professor, Department of Mathematics. So as a external affairs minister, you have to answer a lot of difficult questions.
Like I'm doing now.
On the spot. And some of the questions are very sensitive in nature, considering the geopolitical issues and all those things. And each of your words can be interpreted differently by national and international media. So how do you prepare yourself mentally before going to a press conference?
You know, look, this answer is actually going to scare you, and I hope you don't lose confidence in me. Most of the time, you don't actually, you know, consciously prepare. I mean, meaning what happens? I mean, this is something we do as a routine. Even you keep discussing, you keep engaging. And it's not just me. I have, after all, a spokesperson of the government who works in my ministry. They have a briefing, so you keep, I would say, like net practice. You keep discussing things. If they ask this, what would you say? You know, what is the messaging we should put out? What is it we should not say? Exactly what you said. How would we be read here? But at some stage, if you've done enough of it and you have a sort of aptitude for it, you have internalized it so deeply that it's a instinctive response. So there is something there. There is a training, you know. There is a experience. There is something, you know, which is, you know, at the end of the day, the body is such a great machine that maybe it's got assimilated out there. So often I would say when I think back at some of the difficult situations, typically there would be about 70–80% in any situation which you would have anticipated, you would know. Because it's not like you walk in without preparation. You know, ideally, I would like to, ideally I would have liked to know what all you guys were going to ask me today, ideally. But often, I would say 10% would take you by surprise or would come at you from an angle you haven't thought. And that's really where your instinct and your experience comes in. And by the way, I'd be honest, and sometimes you make mistakes. That is also, in diplomacy, I'm not talking about, it doesn't have to be me personally, but, important people sometimes don't say the right things or don't pick the right words, and it can have consequences too. That does happen. So your question is completely legitimate. So I hope that now that you planted that thought in my mind, it doesn't make me nervous the next time I go to a press conference, but I would still go with my instinct. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
India has a large number of talented and skilled youths. As we can see, our tech graduates are running the top tech giants in the world like Google, Microsoft, etc. So sir, I would like to ask, what effective measures will help to retain the talent in our country in order to realize our dream of India becoming a world leader or Vishwaguru?
I think in my remarks, I shared with some of you that when I travel around the world and look at the progress of other countries, it hurts me sometimes when I say, why isn't this happening in my own? And today, quite honestly, I feel much better because I think a lot of changes are happening in my own. Now, something similar also happens in terms of talent. That when you, I must say, by the way, I would also say a large part of my school class, they graduated, many of them went into IITs, and many of them actually went abroad. So now that at this age and stage we all have a WhatsApp group, we are all trying to locate each other, and I'm actually quite amazed how many of my classmates lived abroad. Now, it happened to, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. To my mind, people who go abroad have actually been an enormous catalyst of change in our country. I'm not talking because they remit money or because they, inspire us. Because we Indians are family oriented, even those Indians who go abroad stay in touch with their families at home. So for every one person out there, 5 others have some connectivity and some influence, and we keep talking to people. And so there's actually, it's very non-quantifiable, but the Indians abroad actually have been a very powerful force of change in India. But yet, your point you mentioned, when Indians have done very well abroad in big companies. I think a large part of it is that the governance system in India did not steadily broaden opportunities, generation by generation. You have opportunities today, definitely more than I had. But if I were to say 10 years ago or 20 years ago, it was much less. A lot of what we are seeing now, what I hear, the whole idea of innovation, startup, even, and it doesn't need to be at a tech level. Even the idea that people who do informal jobs can actually get credit, can get financing, can get microfinancing without any kind of collateral. It's actually a revolutionary idea. In our country, people didn't do it. The banks actually would not look at a very large segment of our population. And that is one of the, when I spoke about those remarkable changes which you now assume is normal, this is one of the remarkable changes which has happened actually in the last few years. So I would say, to me, how do you create more opportunities? How do you promote? How do you encourage people to do more things and make businesses out of it? To actually, and a lot of what we are doing, the enabling E I spoke about. You know, if you have a drone policy, for example, you're sending a signal that, look, there's a whole drone domain out there in which you can make a living. If you have a space policy, you can do so. I think we are still evolving. There's enormous room for growth, to my mind, in this. But how, to my mind, the more we are able to make our own society an exciting place for talent, I see our national prospects very much tied to it.